Already?
Yep, no, live. So, hi everyone. I'm here with Nory Pouncil, who we started working together probably about 6 months ago, I think it was. And Nory has some tremendous, awesome gifts. And she's really good at using them every day in her everyday life for her own personal self. But when we started working together, we started talking about how we can take those unique gifts that she's truly the best, like better than anyone else at them, and turning them into really a business so she can help others. You can use those gifts to help others. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what she discovered along that way, what that did for her, how that helped her business. And let's just dive right in and start having a conversation about this and see where this goes. So, Nory, if you don't mind, take us back to the beginning as to how, even before we found each other, what led you to even connect with me, or maybe was I connected with you first? I don't even remember. If you could just like start from the beginning.
So it seems such a long time ago now, but when I was looking for help, so we are in this meeting together and with another person, another coach, right? And I posted on there that I was struggling with organic outreach, I think it was. And prior to that, I had been struggling with organic outreach. Later, I would figure out why that was. I was working through feeling some rejection through that process, and I was having a really hard time navigating that. And I remember posting on the group something to the effect of like, hey, does anyone have any tips on how to get better at organic outreach or something? And you responded in one of your, what I call them, your Ellie riddles. Which is really just another way of like the simple stuff that you say, but when you're so used to overthinking and over processing and analyzing, it just sounds like a riddle when you first read it. And I was really intrigued by it, right? So I think you may have exchanged messages on Facebook. But I remember going onto Sam's website and looking at interviews and noticing that you had done an interview because I was asking about people that were in the personal development niche, which is the niche that I'm in. And a lot of people had before said, you gotta go ads, just go ads, just go ads. But I didn't have the financial bandwidth to do ads just yet. So I was looking for help with that. I think that's what's going on. And then I went on Sam's pile of articles and content, and you came up in one of the tags as like a personal development conversation, which I don't remember if it was before or after our conversation. I don't remember the order. But I was like, okay, I'm very familiar with his name, so let me look at this interview. And you were sharing, and I don't remember how, there's a saying that Maya Angelou has, like people will forget what you say, but they don't forget how you make them feel. And I don't remember the specific things you were saying, but I just remember feeling like this is my person. Like this person understands how I navigate. This person understands the world that I kind of like live in, and they are doing this. So I need to figure out how is this person doing it because I'm struggling with that, whatever it is, right? So I think I sat with it for like a day or two. And then when you were talking in that interview, I really understood a lot about what were some of the challenges that I was facing. Like I had language to articulate them and to speak on them. So what I ended up getting a lot of clarity from there. And I think I had booked a session with you, a strike stream with you, and then I saw your interview, and then I canceled it because I was like, oh, I have the answers that I need now. I don't need to. Like, he already answered my questions without having to talk to him. So as I look back at that, that might have been fun for you. So then I went and applied stuff that you mentioned and you shared in the interview, but I still felt like I needed the help. Like I needed to be walked through the process. I work best when I like to think of myself as being teachable when I'm not resistant. So I felt like I needed that. So we ended up chatting at some point, and when we chatted, I was like, yeah, he gets it. But by then, financially in my business, I have been spending a lot of time working on this stuff and doing doing all the things that were helping me learn, but they weren't bringing in money. So, because that's part of the process. Sometimes the learning, you cannot just be great from the beginning. You have to have time to grow and flourish, right? So, yeah, that's kind of the beginning. I think I can pause. So basically, we talk, and I wanted to work with you right away. Like, I knew I wanted to do this. Like, again, I knew how I felt just listening to you, and I hadn't felt like that with another coach before. Like, I had worked with several coaches, and their approach just did not connect with me. So even though what they were saying, I'm sure was very valuable, because they didn't, that wasn't really their target market. They weren't communicating with me because they didn't really get it. Like, and you got it. Like, you were talking to me. So, I was a little devastated because I couldn't work with you at first. Financially, it was just really tough. And I remember you being the first coach that I went and asked friends for, like, money. Like, I went and I asked friends to invest in me, in my ideas, so that I can work with you. And it was extremely uncomfortable. And what you didn't know was that my mom had just had a stroke around that time. So there was a lot of moving pieces. But I just felt like the universe put you there. I felt like this was the thing I had been asking for. And then we were able to work together at the beginning of the year.
Wow.
So that was the beginning.
Tell me a little bit about maybe the business side. What was going on in your business? That you obviously had a business already before we started our conversation and working together. What was going on, and what were you doing? Who were you serving?
So in the business at the time, I was focused on women that were feeling stuck. And I wanted to just work with women that were feeling stuck. I had been in that position before, years prior. So I really was walking my clients through how to overcome hurt, how to overcome disappointment, how to really navigate the process of depression and get to the root of it so that they can free themselves from that weight. And I was doing that. And I was really good once I work with people, but getting the leads was such a challenge for me, because one thing about my personality style is that I don't really care for small talk. And I really do I prefer diving deeper into these concepts and like really talking through the feelings. Like, I'm a feelings person. So I was struggling with that initial process of building a relationship with someone where you have to do some of that small talk, right? Where you have to get to know people before there's that trust to have this deeper conversations, which is where kind of my work really lives. And then people don't always want to talk about that. Like, I want to talk about the mess. I want to talk about the discomfort. Those are things that people are actively running away from. So I didn't fully understand the concept of what I was trying to do and what he meant outside of, let me help you overcome this disappointment. Like, I was so focused on the detail that I didn't see this bigger picture, which were some of the patterns that really came up when you and I started working together, of course. But that's what I was focused on. I was working with women, and the business, it wasn't necessarily booming, right? Like I mentioned, working with you was a little bit of a financial stretch for me at the time. But it was one that I knew it had to be done. And I knew that if I believed that the universe was abundant, that I could find a way to make it happen, even if it made me feel uncomfortable to have to ask for that type of help.
That was brave.
So that's what,
That was brave of you to go out and do that.
well, I like to listen sometimes. Listen to the intuition sometimes.
Tell me, so what were some of the things that you felt were missing? Not necessarily missing, but things that you could improve on. Like, where did you want to take the business? Where it was, right? So you described where it was. Where did you want to take it? And right, and what led you then to reach out to me or for us to have a conversation? There was something that you were looking for more of that you felt would take you somewhere.
Yeah, I think at the time, JP and I, my husband, that's my husband's name, he and I were really working through wanting to take the business to the next level. We wanted to get to a point where there was consistent income coming in. We wanted to get to a point where we were making a certain amount of money. And at the time, I think for me, I was really struggling with feeling like there was a right way to do this and I was doing it wrong. And I didn't really know how to do the thing. And I felt like I was really fighting a lot of the everyday activities that went into following the processes of some of the coaches I was working with. And I couldn't quite identify why that resistance was so strong and why it was paralyzing to a point to me, because I knew I wanted the business to prosper, but I still prosper in the context of dollar signs, like I think a lot of entrepreneurs do. And that became the goggle by which I measure my success. So the more I did that, the less successful I felt, because I wasn't bringing in that financial piece. And as a result, I will continue to not bring it in because that's the energy with which I was going to the market in the first place. So it's like this very vicious cycle just going around. And at the end, it's me exhausted because I feel like I have been working, right? And I'm not seeing the returns of that investment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you are hoping that I can help you with consistency and more money.
Yeah, and I think beyond that, I think part of me wanted to know that it was okay to be in business without your main goal being to make a bunch of money. Like, I think that's not my goal in my business. And I know that there are trades that I make because that's not my goal, but I hadn't felt okay with that. I felt that I needed to want to make all this money, and that every decision that I had to make was around making all this money. But I wanted to adopt the mindset. I wanted to embrace the mindset that I already really felt in my heart, that it's, if I do something to help people, if I do something that really is my best work and is the most authentic version of myself, and if I give that back to the world, then money's gonna come. But I didn't know how to like really get into that because I felt like I wasn't doing a good job as a business person.
Sounds like a lot of noise in the industry of money is everything. Essentially kept causing you have self-doubt that it doesn't make sense. I'm missing something.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that.
When we started working together, obviously you came for one thing. It sounds like you got something different.
I got what I really needed. What I needed, as he always does with those of us that hire help.
Walk us a little bit through, if you don't mind sharing the process of that, of maybe what you were hoping for when you saw what maybe disappointments along the way that you realized, you had aha moments. Maybe start the process of how it started working for you. What happened?
The biggest aha moment I had was, this is the first one that comes to my mind, was that it was a long-term game. I had been trying to like do the shortcut. I had been trying to get it fast. Like, I had seen in spaces where there were other people, other coaches like myself, like you and I met in that same context, in that same group, that people were making like $30,000 in 7 days, or $50,000 in 10 days, or $100,000 in a month. Like, it was just like, I can barely make $500 this month. Like, what is happening? Like, what am I doing or not doing, right? And making peace with that, and just, that was the biggest aha moment. It was like, this is just gonna take time, and time is gonna pass anyway. So you can just do this. It's okay. And that was the biggest aha moment I had, because I wasn't thinking like that. And it was almost like a second aha moment I had was, you really do have to build these relationships. Like, there's no way around that. And I know that I'm great at building relationships and I love building relationships. But for some reason, again, transferring that skill that I'm so gifted at in my personal life into my business, I wasn't even seeing them like the same thing. So I tend to have a pattern, or there's this pattern that I engage in where I see what's different in the situation and I see the details of the situation as opposed to looking at the big picture, it's looking at the similarities. So because that's something that I find myself with challenged by all the time and I default to, I can lose sight that this is the same thing. And that was the second aha moment that I came with you was, this is the same thing, because when we were working together, JP and I used to sit in some of the sessions, and then you got to see our interactions, and you started telling us about our personality types based of seeing us interact with each other. And that was so powerful because we do have different styles, but we do have overlap in the same time. So it really helped me understand how the things I was challenged by were at play and how I needed to come more to the middle on some of these things in order to get the outcome that I wanted to get.
Can you give us an example of one thing?
Say what?
Can you give us an example of one of those things?
Which one of those things?
Like one of those things that you felt like you needed to come to the middle on, something that...
Yeah, I would definitely say I can be more detail focused than big picture. And when I do that, it results in overthinking and overanalyzing and ultimately paralysis and not taking action toward the things I want. Whereas JP, he's more big picture. So for him, because he's the big picture, he's constantly moving, even if the details are not quite in alignment, right? So one thing I had to learn was that it would help me greatly to start focus more on the big picture initially versus the details, because I'm already going to care about the details. That's the default part of my style. So I can just say, I know the details are covered. I don't have to worry about those. Let me look at the big picture. And that was something that I'm still actively doing today, because it is such a big change. And it's a pattern that's so embedded. So I'm learning that I do have to be super intentional about looking at the big picture, about not getting caught up in the details in order for me to stay grounded and going towards where I want to go.
What do you feel is that gift that you do really well in your personal life that you said that you're good at, that you're the best in the world at? What is that?
My gift is being able to see what people look like at their best and helping them align those patterns with everything they do in their life. So when we are our best, there's a version of ourselves that's shining, right? That's present, that's taking action, that sees excitement instead of fear. And it just moves differently, and it just feels really whole. And we don't get to feel that all the time, because there are all these voices, there's all this noise, and then we begin to get caught up in those voices, and that keeps us from feeling something that is within us, and we start thinking that it's external. So I help people find it within themselves, and it's super awesome.
So that's really interesting. So you see things in people that you see their potential, what they could be when they're at their best. How does that manifest in your in like personal life when you say that? Okay, so as a person, like my personal life, I could do that, no problem. Why would that even be a challenge on the business side? Like
It's a challenge because we don't think we have the tools we need to do the thing we want. And it's a challenge because we don't have enough experience trusting ourselves with ourselves. So we default to other people because we think that they have the answers that, or they need to validate the answers for us for the things that we really want to do. So we want people to validate us. We want people to tell us it's okay. And we don't do that with ourselves. So it's difficult when it shows up, because then you feel like you might be doing something wrong. And that is difficult to navigate. At least from my perspective and from what I've learned so far.
Where do you see, like, so in your personal life, where do you use this trait? Like, how do you use it besides for, say, obviously your spouse or partner? What do you, where else does this come out, and how is it effective for you?
I actually use this trait in everything I do. Like, for example, I'm really vested into my own self-mastery. Like, get into a place where I respond to triggers with as much ease as possible, feeling deeper levels of inner peace, being in a space where I can respond to situations without reacting. I can acknowledge the thoughts without engaging them, and just being in the present moment as much as possible so that I can just be a human being and not a human doing. And I use this same methods that I share with my clients with myself every day. So whether that is developing a meditation practice, being self-aware with action. A lot of times we see self-awareness as being knowing, but it's actually doing. You become aware so you can do something. And it's the absence of doing that leads to those quote unquote breakdown moments, which is just really an opportunity to revise your foundation, because there's clearly some cracks in it. So I use it with exercise as well. It's something I do every morning. Like, all these principles around meeting myself where I'm at. It's actually interesting because I started playing tennis about 4 weeks ago, and today we got a coach to help us. JP plays with me too, so we got a coach to help us get some basics. But it took me a little bit to get the coach, because I wanted to first get comfortable with like the racket and the ball, and then I wanted to see how I felt about the sport, So these are the same things that I employ with my work. It's try it out, see how you feel about it. Then if you really like doing it, then invest in it. And now I moved on to I'm investing in it part, because I love doing it. And it's an activity that brings me a lot of joy, right? And I get to do it with JP, which is super awesome, because we're spending time together away from a screen. So I really utilize these principles of self-mastery into everything that I do. So the fact that I saw it so differently in the business, it speaks to how disconnected we are from what our skills are, and how life really is very simple, and we're making more complex than it needs to be. And we think that the business person is the person that knows the business. Like, I need to go to the business guru to get my business advice. But it's all the same advice.
Don't give away the secrets.
It's all the same advice. If you could do it, and that's one thing I used to struggle with a lot, because JP used to say, how can a woman that has run 2 marathons on her own have such a hard time doing this thing? This is a lot easier than running a marathon, let alone 2. And I just could not see that. And then he said, well, how did you do the marathon? And I was like, well, I created this, and then I was working out this times, and I was very consistent about this time. And he's like, no, it's the same thing you do over here. But he was just not.
Well, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about you. Which marathons did you do?
I did the Yonkers Marathon, and I think that was 2013, and then I did the New York City Marathon in 2015.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
He's like, and the funny thing about all of this is when I asked my friends about what are my unique gifts or the things I'm really, really good at, one of them is always like, you're the best challenge tackler I know. Like, you can tackle a challenge, and you're just like amazing at making it done. I've seen you master so many things. And the funny thing is that I don't think I've mastered any of those things. I think I've done more work than a lot of people would for those things, but it doesn't mean I've mastered it. There's still a lot of things I don't know about this art, and I've no longer keep it to that same, speed. So it's just fascinating hearing other people, what they see, And then that has been a power source for me, because when I feel like I'm stuck or something, I remind myself, like, I know how to tackle a challenge. So let's step away from this and let's come back and see what the intuition says. And let's do that. Um,
What do you feel they mean when they say this? Like, say you've mastered it, but you know you didn't, or you don't feel you have.
so what do I think they mean?
Yeah. What do you think they're saying?
They're just saying I know I do it better than them, or I know more about it than they do, or they see me doing stuff that they haven't been able to do because they're literally just saying, I see you have strengthened this muscle and I haven't. And that's why you are a master, because you have strengthened the muscle that I have not strengthened.
What goes through your mind when someone says that to you? I'm curious. How do you feel when they say, "Oh, you're an expert," and you just feel like you're not really? What happens?
Um, it depends on the topic, because when it comes to my gift and like helping people through self-awareness and self-mastery, I'm just like, yeah, I'm really good at it. Like, it's not a second thought about it anymore. But before, I used to be very, no, I'm not that good, or, I don't know enough. Like, I would downplay it. But now I'm just like, yeah, I am. I'm perhaps like the best person that you can work on with this if you want to get results. And it's not, and what I've been able to see is that it's not about being egotistical. It's about acknowledging that you are good at this. Like, it's not, it's a fact. So I think that's where but I've gotten to that place now. And working with you helped me do that, actually, because when we started working together, I was still in that very apologetic space where I felt like I had not seen the worth of my value. And even though people would pay me money for it, I did not understand it. And I wasn't fully present in the transformations that were taking place. So I couldn't really see them. I knew they were happening, but I couldn't really see them. And I remember maybe like maybe earlier this September, August. And I was working on a redesign for my website, and I was looking at the review section, and I just started reading them. And I was just like, oh my God, this is what I've been doing this whole time. Like, it was like a moment that just opened me up. And I don't think I would have gotten to that place without you, because you were the first person that, in a way, in business context, did not try to change me. You did not come saying, Nory, you got to change all these things about you. You were just like, okay, here's how we create room for the thing that you really want. And no one had talked to me like that before. So you made it okay for me to be me. And I remember, I'll never forget this time I was talking to you about something, and I might have said something about me feeling broken, or something in the business was broken, or the people I was working with were broken. And you were like, people are not broken. They don't need to be fixed. And I hadn't really sat with that until I heard you say it. And I realized that I had been trying to run a business with the assumption that people were broken and needed to be fixed. And that was one of the most life-changing aha moments that I've had working with you. But I don't think I've ever told you about to this conversation. So good for you for asking these questions. But yeah.
Thank you for sharing this. I feel like many people watching this will really be helped by this, like seeing themselves in your story and just realizing, oh, I felt the same way. I never, and because we always talk to people every day, and we show them, and you talk about this gift that you have. You probably see people every day that have their gifts, and you see them, and they like, really, I can do that. That's me. It's like, nah, I don't think so. It's just nothing. That's not. And again, we don't see our own worth on a simple level, and the truth is, sometimes it does take an outside perspective. It's not it doesn't make you less. It just sometimes, when we see things in perspective from other people and we see how you're using it, it can really help you bring it out in a very effective way. What do you feel, now you actually mentioned this, let's go right there. What do you feel helped you in our conversations and our discussions discover that, realize that? Like, I mean, I can't convince you. So, right, if you don't feel something, we can argue, now some, forever trying to prove a point. You obviously didn't feel it. Now you do. What changed?
I read this quote. I talk a lot in the context of quotes, apparently. I read this quote maybe like a month or two ago, and it said, the best teachers tell you where to look, but not what to look for. And I think about you in that way. I think in the conversations you and I had together, you would tell me like where to look, but you wouldn't specifically say this is the answer, right? So you would help me see things by making me do the work of looking for the answer. And I think that helped me a lot, because then I realized that I had the answer. And I think that's the best way I can articulate that. A lot of coaches I had worked with before, they were giving me the answer. So I never got to strengthen the skill of knowing how to listen to my intuition, because they had it. They had everything for me. And you were the first coach that I worked with that was like, this is not do as I say. This is, here is your spot. Here's where you want to, this is where you want to find your answer. You go ahead and find it, because the answer is for you. I don't know what the answer is for you. This is your answer is for you. And I think that's, first of all, one of the things that separates you as a coach and has really influenced my own personal coaching style. And I think it's just what has helped me get results with you, is because you literally strengthen my ability to listen to my intuition without blatantly saying that that's what you're doing. I don't even know if you would say that that's what you're doing, but that's what you're doing. You can say it now.
Now I'm going to think, like, how? What did I do? What? But for people listening, could you give us an example of what that would be?
Yeah. So I remember we were talking about pricing one time, and I was thinking about this earlier actually, because I was just looking at my own pricing. And you were like, yeah, when you talk to people, just don't say the price like it's a big deal. Like, just talk about it. And then I'm like, well, what is it a big deal? Like, I think it's a big deal. And you're like, okay, well then make it a price that's not a big deal. And I remember being like, so what price is that? And you were like, you tell me what price feels like it's not a big deal. And those are the moments I'm talking about. Like, you didn't give the solution, but you gave enough information to help me get there, And you really understood me as a student, because I'm really feeling driven. Like, I may not be able to articulate, as opposed to people that can explain their feelings. I'm the other way. Like, I can speak in the context of feelings more than anything else. So, knowing that information about me, and I don't, this may or may not be happening at a conscious or subconscious level, who knows? But those are the things that make the difference, right? Because you understand how I learn, and you're helping me see the thing I need to see without telling me what to look for, while putting me in a position where I'm making the decision. And that's what strengthens our intuition. It's listening to what we say, taking all these things about us and putting it towards making a decision that we are at peace with at the end of the night. We may not like it, we may not be happy with it, we may not love it, but we are at peace with it. It's not holding any weight, it's not holding any energy. And that's how it feels to listen to your own voice. And I think you're really good at helping people exercise that without necessarily saying, hey, this is a strengthening your intuition exercise. Like, it's just doing it. Like, and then it's like, you've been doing it all along, and you're like, oh, I have been doing it all along. Oh my God, I didn't even know. And now you have it and you feel it. because you've been stacking those rocks in that direction.
What does it feel like when you figure it out in yourself? What's the value? Like, if you could give us like show us like what it means on a better level. Like, how much greater is it worth to someone to figure it out themselves versus being told? Because I think everyone on some level, we all feel like we could just give me the answer. It'll make it easier. So the fact that you weren't given just that answer, share the value on the other side of the coin, so people could realize how much valuable it is, or how valuable it is really, to see it the other way.
The biggest value is not feeling like a fraud. When someone gives you the answer, you don't feel like you really got it. You feel like you got the answer that person gave you. And next quote for those of you that are keeping track. It's when another mentor shares a quote with me, and it's, understanding doesn't lead to action, but action leads to understanding. And
That's a good one.
So that's one that I definitely keep close to me all the time. And when I can tell someone what it's like to lose 10 pounds. I can tell them, hey, like, if you to lose 10 pounds, you just have to eat better, you gotta exercise, you have to get a little bit of better sleep, drink your water. And people still don't exercise, or people may know, they can understand that, eating unhealthy doesn't help their body, but they still eat it, right? But if I just work out with you and you start to feel it, you start to feel how much lighter your body feels. You start to feel how much clearer your thinking is. You start to feel how stronger and grounded you feel inside. You begin to get more energy. Suddenly, you're like, this feels good. This feels really good. So now you want to do it more and more. So when it comes to the intuition, we have been taught, many of us, that we don't know what's best for us. From the beginning, we have our mom telling us what to do, whoever raised us. So this idea that we listen to our intuition, if you make it with some of it through childhood, it gets pounded down by society as you come along, right? So it never really gets a chance to mature and to flourish. It doesn't have a strong foundation, because we never really spend time doing that, unless you are in an environment that allows and fosters that behavior. But for a lot of us, that's not the environment we grew up in. So when you go through that process, you begin to do that strengthening. You begin to build that muscle. And when you build that muscle, when you believe in your heart that you know what's best for you, and you take action with that knowledge, you give yourself permission to celebrate the rewards that come out of it. You give yourself permission to enjoy the work that you're doing. And you give yourself permission to take chances, to take bigger risks, to fail freely and happily, and to learn from those lessons. You give yourself a chance to not care about the thing that everybody says you need to be caring about, and just give yourself permission to do something you love. And when you do that thing that you love, you feel like you're walking your purpose. And that's what everybody says they want. To know what it's like to feel, to walk in their purpose. But what we don't realize is that to walk in our purpose, it actually means to walk less, to carry less, and to be more. But we think it's doing and accomplishing and achieving and stacking and all these other things. And then when we get it, we realize it wasn't any of it to begin with. So I think that's the beauty of working it out, or working your intuition out. Because when you give your intuition a workout, you allow yourself room to be present in what comes out of that. And then you can get the new clothes and feel really good about it, because you feel like you earned it. And I know a lot of us don't like the idea of having to earn things, or having to like do work sometimes to get things. But the feeling of knowing that you earned something and you work really hard to get it is a lot more amazing than we give it credit for. And that's what you get. And it's so empowering.
It's like the marathon, right? If you got the medal without the run.
Yeah. It's just that you can get the medal. You don't have to run around 30 to get a medal. You can just get it. But for the person that, because when you hit that finish line, and when when your intuition, there's gonna come a point when you listen to your intuition, when you begin to notice all the beautiful things that are happening because you're listening to your intuition. It's gonna come a point when you begin to see that there are things that are good and that you are worthy of these good things. You begin to notice that people around you are treating you differently because you are treating yourself differently. In all the things that you may have wanted to manifest, they begin to show up in tiny ways, like small little snippets you begin to see. And then suddenly that life you've been dreaming about is not so far-fetched anymore. Suddenly it's much more attainable than you ever thought it was. And you begin to see for the very first time that you can do it, that you are the one making all these decisions. And there's a moment in our lives when we realize we are the ones making the decision, and we trust it and we believe it, and then we are suddenly we are okay if the decision doesn't pan out with the outcome. And then we go into being more process focused than being outcome focused. And that's a more peaceful way to live, which is ultimately what I want, to live as peaceful as I can. So if you want to be living peacefully, I've done a lot of work to try to figure out how to get there.
How are you translating this to your clients? Like like it's to receive something is one thing, and then to turn it around and go, like you said, it has impacted your coaching. Can you walk us through that? Like, what are you doing differently than you're doing before?
Oh my God, I'm giving less answers for sure. I'm creating environments that foster learning and less about just giving people the information. I think as a coach, there's a fine line between how much you're educating versus how much the person is getting what they need. Because sometimes we feel like people need to know all these things, but in reality, they may not need to know all these things, right? So as a coach, I'm learning to create space where people can learn without me. I'm learning to be that coach that tells you where to look, but doesn't tell you what you're looking for. And I think it's been great for my clients. They're learning more. It's actually, this is gonna sound funny or counterintuitive for some of you, but like, it's gotten me to a place that I'm working less as a coach because I don't need to, right? And I've noticed that as a coach now, I trust my clients more with themselves. And I have to remember that that's what they hire me in the first place, is because they want to trust yourself with yourself, and to listen to your intuition and to walk in your purpose is all the same thing. Those are different ways of saying the same thing, of having the same feeling that you want, right? And or at least that my clients want. And because it's the same thing, you can just work on it in different ways. So as a coach now, I don't have to. I let them be. I'm like, okay, this is how much time you need to do this. It's fine. This is your process. Like, what I do now is help them keep track. I help them keep context of the details so that they don't get lost in the big picture. So I know that's something I'm really naturally good at. So I let them know, hey, you've been working on this for XYZ. Are you okay with that? Do you want to, like, what's happening here? Let's learn about that. And I'm letting them do more of the driving, for sure. Like, I'm actually not even on the driver's seat. Like, I'll share with you what you need to know, but what I think is relevant for you to get forward. But ultimately, it's you have to get there on your own, right? And like, I respect that. I'm respecting my clients a lot more. And it's interesting because if you'd have asked me when we started working together if I needed help learning how to respect my clients more, I wouldn't have even thought that was an issue to address in the first place. Which is one of the things about working with coaches. It's like they help you see things that you didn't even know that needed to be addressed, that are causing challenges for you in your business that you don't need to address, you don't need to be dealing with in the first place. Did that make sense?
Yeah. And it's some level, that's one of the hardest things I think for people to grasp when we come to coach is like I want this and they haven't given me that, and not having the awareness to realize no, they did give me something. Even that which I think I didn't get, I did. It's right. It's on us on some level to look for it and to figure out what did I discover here, what did I learn, and often that's the aha. And it takes a lot of self-awareness. Many people just, just they go from one coach to the next and then blame this one and blame that one. And the ability to be able to see it and get it is rare, because we've all had people that have. I always speak for myself. I don't know about you. That they come on board and they're like, no, I wanted that. Just give me the answers. I can give you the answers, but they don't. I found that many people don't even use them. I tell me what to say, so I'll tell people what to say, and then they won't say that. So I'm like, why didn't you? I gave you the exact words, and it doesn't, because like you pointed out, it doesn't feel like it's me. So I don't want to say someone else's words. And so
it's just very inauthentic, and then you feel like you're trying to be that person instead of trying to be yourself.
Right.
And I think there's stages to that process too, right? So as you navigate in this as a coach or someone watching this content, you have to create space for that period of time where you are copying another person, so you can see that you are doing that and you can stop doing it. All right. So and you can find a different way to do it. So it's okay to experience that. And I think a lot of people experience that and feel bad about it, feel shame, feel guilt, feel like they shouldn't be doing this at all. I feel like they did something bad and they're being naughty and they need to be punished, and they just stop working. But I remember at a point writing down on my journal, like it's something specific to the fact that I am not here to be Ellie. I'm here to be Nory, and he's helping me do that. Because I was catching, like, I really love your style as a coach, right? So when you really love someone's style, it could be easy to just get really submerged into copying what they're doing because you enjoy it so much. And it's awesome because, a lot of people don't always feel seen and heard. So when you find someone that you connect with, it's such an exciting opportunity. But part of that excitement is still an emotion, right? So you still have to be mindful of how to navigate that excitement, and you still have to remember that when you are this excited, you may not be thinking as clearly, and you may not be moving in the direction that you really want to be moving, because you're letting the emotion drive you versus you experiencing the emotion and choosing what to take and what to leave behind. So I had to have that moment for myself. And this is why being present is all that matters, because those moments are going to happen. It's part of our human nature. It's part of our human development and how we navigate the world from a mental perspective and experiences. We haven't evolved that much in the past millions of years. So because they're going to happen anyway, you just got to be present to catch them. So when they do happen and you're there and you caught them, you can do something about them, because they're going to happen whether you like it or not. And that's part of what makes us able to teach people, but also what helps us change things in our own lives. It only happens in the now.
It sounds like when our original conversation was about getting organic going, it was a funny journey about how to then to get there. Along the way, discover many different ahas. But it sounds like you got there, and you are doing organic really well. What's going on with organic, and it's exciting how you never know how it's going to come, but now you figured it out. What's going on?
So the first thing with organic was realizing what was really happening. A lot of times when we think the thing is, it's never really the thing, right? So knowing that it's important, whether you are working with a coach, whether you're working by yourself, whether you have a business, you have to know that what you think it is, it never is. So that as soon as it comes up, you are immediately curious about what it really is, because you know it's not that. So with organic outreach, it really wasn't about the people. And it also wasn't about the rejection either, although that was a trigger for other things that needed to be addressed in order to get to where I want to be, period. In order to address some of these patterns that I want to change, these behaviors I want to change. And what ended up really being was, I didn't like what I was talking about. I didn't feel confident in what I was sharing. And I think a big part of it was I didn't see the worth of my value. I think that's such a groundbreaking piece, because you can sell something that you cannot sell something you don't believe in. And when you don't see the worth of your value, you're going to have a hard time communicating that to people. And people don't owe you to have to want to understand what you're selling. you owe it to them to make it as simple as possible for them to understand it, so that they can decide whether they want to work with you or not, and you can decide whether they're a good fit for you or not. But that's something that you owe it to people. People don't owe you anything. And I would even say you may not owe it to them, but if you want to have a successful business, if you want to have a business where you're helping people and you're generally getting to know who they are, then you'll want that. You want to be like, why would you want to make simple complicated? It's not. It doesn't make sense. So no one is ever saying, I wish my phone was more complicated. It's always the opposite. I wish there were less things. I wish there was. So it's the same thing with you gotta cut the fat. You gotta cut to see what are the things that you are adding on to, because you think it's what makes you a good business person. So I think that's something that definitely comes to mind for me.
What is working for organic now? What do you do now that works well?
So right now, the number one thing I'm doing is I'm not allowing financial goals to dictate how I view progress in my business. And I am allowing myself to talk to the people I want to talk to in the way that I want to talk to them, based on what I've learned from having a business. So in the nature of the work that I do, which is really helping people understand how to respond to discomfort, and so that they can go through life with more ease, because life is actually standard uncomfortable. Comfort is more temporary than discomfort, even though we seem to convince ourselves of otherwise. But the work that I do, a lot of people don't want to deal with that, right? Even the people that do don't. Even the people that are open to having these conversations and want to work with me, it's still difficult for them. There's still resistance there because it doesn't feel good, and the brain doesn't want to do anything that doesn't feel good. It's just how we work to stay alive, survival stuff. And what I had to do was realize that I needed to rebuild this trust before we can get these things done. And I had a woman I talked to, and she put it in this phrase, in this wording, and she said, I have to get to know you before I get naked with you emotionally. And I hadn't really thought about it in that way until, we started working together, and I noticed how much work you put towards building these relationships in the context of the tips you were sharing with us. And people had to get to know me better, and I realized that it was actually not that easy for people to get to know me, because I like to, again, that whole small talk situation, that's kind of what social media is like. So it's not a space where I like to spend my time. So even when I am there, it's very like, I'm fleeting, I'm not consistent. So when are people supposed to get to know me? When are they supposed to know that first of all, I'm amazing, and that they can totally and should totally work with me, but that I actually understand what may be going on with them, and that I can help them, and that there's value in what I'm sharing with them, and that it's not something that's only concept. This is what it looks like in real life. We have to give people a chance to do that. And we have to do that with our business, because we are our business. Our business is an extension of us. So when after I realized that I needed to build that trust, was launch a free membership. I actually just did this not too long ago. I launched a free membership that's not on social media. It's actually on another platform. And the first thing I did was revise what I was doing. Like, I think at the time I was still using a video as my lead magnet, and people had to watch the video and then from there be recommended to do a call and all those other things. And I when I first started doing that, I wasn't a big fan of it, but I didn't know better, so I did. So I changed that, and instead what I did is I developed a quiz. I had done quizzes. I had learned about quizzes before, and I knew they were really great ways to get lead magnets and to segment your list, but I hadn't really done the work with the quiz. So I had a framework I thought about last year, but self-doubt in life kind of came in, so I didn't really launch it until this year. So after you and I working together, part of that strengthening the intuition muscle helped me get the courage to take something I had birthed it in a way a year prior and actually bring it to life. So that was the four stages of awareness framework. So I took the thing that I did and I put a framework together, and I developed a quiz to help people figure out where they are. So the quiz is really a way of thinking through, and you've mentioned it being like the Google Maps for your emotions. So if you want to know what's happening right now when in the emotional state you're in, the quiz can help you do that. It's something you can take multiple times, which is different than some other quizzes that you can only take once. It's helping you identify where you are. And with this quiz, I wanted to do something that people can utilize, that they will need to know before they work with me. Like, I started thinking about, what do people need to know before they're even in a position to work with me? Those were the questions that I hadn't really asked before. And then I started looking at not just what's my ideal client on paper, but what does my ideal client need to prepare? Let me teach people that. So the quiz is like the opening to that. One of the things that people need to know before they work with me is practicing self-acceptance. If you don't accept yourself, you're going to have a hard time changing any behaviors. So I focus a lot of my content on the quiz around that specific theme. And the quiz has been great. It's something that I launched earlier this year. And so far, I think I'm up to 300 people that have taken it since I launched it. And it's just been really great, the feedback I've gotten on it. People are really enjoying it. And the way the quiz is written, if it has you asking these questions for the first time. So even the process of taking the quiz, whether you finished it or not, it's already helping you get to a place so that you can get to where you want to get to. So that's been extremely powerful. Then, having developed this framework, this is something I definitely want to talk about. I'm so excited about this framework. It's something that I've seen with my clients. I've used it with my clients. They help me develop it. So it's something that I have to think about to talk about it. So it just comes really natural to discuss it because it's part of my gift, being positioned in this way. And it's been great to talk about during outreach, something that I can talk about all the time with people. I see if they can benefit from it or not. We talk about self-awareness, and we're having a different conversation. And it turns out people want to talk about self-awareness. So you look at that. So that's been pretty cool. Then the next thing I did, I started doing this last month. I noticed that Sam, in the style that he talks to us, he does a lot of like once a month webinar type of situation. And I've tried that approach, but again, the work that I do, it doesn't always translate in that way. Maybe there are some things that I haven't learned yet, but it's not always that cookie cutter with some people. They still want to get comfortable maybe for getting emotionally naked. So I decided that I wanted to create a space to build that trust. And the best place to do that was to do it outside of a social media platform, in a place where I can just talk to my people and we can all have an honest conversation and they can talk to each other. So September 28th, I launched my membership. It's called the Awaken Tribe. And it's a free membership that I give exclusive content to people. We launched with our first 7-day self-awareness challenge. So I had about 48 people sign up for it.
Good for you. Wow. That's good.
I know, it's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
And they all haven't joined the community, but a bunch of them have. So in there, I do live calls with them. We do, right now we're in the middle of the challenge. So I do video content for them every day, and we check in with each other. The app, it has an app feel, so people can use it from their phones if they want to, the platform I'm using. And it's super great because they get to connect with each other. They get to really get to know each other too. And I actually have a few of my clients that are in the challenge. So that's also always fun because, she gives that perspective in discussions. And she'll talk about, I've been working with Nory on these things and some things that we work together. So it's a really cool way to kind of have it all full circle because they get to have someone in the room that knows what it's like to work with me outside, beyond the place where they are. So that's pretty cool. Things that I didn't plan for necessarily, but are happening very organically. And that's been a great way to build that trust so far. I think in the last few days, I've had more touch points with those people than I would have otherwise. And to join the membership, I ask them when their birthdays are, little things like asking them what song they're listening to. And I just created a playlist on Spotify with all their songs and just shared it in the community. So anytime someone joins, they add a song to that community. So it's like
Wow.
we're really building something that is all of us. It's not just Nory's thing. It's every single one of us, and Nory just kind of helps facilitate it. But that's
It's
really
so incredible.
this is super awesome. So I'm excited for that. And I haven't. I know people are probably wondering, like, monetary, what does this look like? You know, things like that. And it hasn't been a huge financial thing yet, not at this stage. At this stage, it's really setting that foundation and building it. And at first, before working with you, this is the time where I would have been panicking. This is the time where I'm like, I'm not making any money for this. This is a waste of my time. What am I doing? I haven't booked the client and all these other things. So now I don't have those thoughts at all. You know, today I even was sitting down looking at what is my program and what are the things that I offer, and just really looking at where do I want to be, where do I want to go in 2021, and what kind of things I'm working for the business. This is the first time I plan ahead like that in my business. And it's because I don't feel this pressure that I need to produce financially to be okay and to be a successful business person. And everybody's situation is different. My husband does work, so he has allowed me to have some of that mental freedom to do this and to take some of these risks, which I'm so grateful for. But it's been really helpful to do that. So now that I'm doing outreach in this way, when people talk to me, I'm like, hey, you can come join my community, my tribe. Come and meet other awesome people that are doing this, and then have a space where you can celebrate yourself and share your ideas and talk about your challenges. We are all doing this cool thing, like, come be a part of it. And then people are like, yeah, I want to be a part of it. So even with my list now, the way my process is, you come in through the quiz. It's literally the only way you can enter my community unless you call me and pay me money. So you enter through the quiz, and once you're in the email list, you get invited to join our community. And then once you're in there, you can participate in any of my monthly challenges I'm going to be doing. And I'm also going to be doing training videos on there. So really just a space for us to learn with each other. One of the cool things about the space we're in is the ability to create these groups. So I call them sacred spaces. And I have a sacred space for our book club, which I've had a book club for over a year now, actually. And I haven't really been promoting that like that. So this is another way to, like, part of this free membership includes a book club, and they can come and join us on Sundays on the book club. They have a place to discuss in the community. So I really feel like everything is coming together. And even though the money is not here, quote unquote, the difference between now and before is that I know it will come. And before, I didn't believe that. Before, I was hoping it will come. But now I know it will. So I just operate like someone that knows the money will come. So everything is working. It's going right.
How did someone find you if they want to get your quiz? Where would they find it?
Oh my God, you have to head to norypouncil.com, and all the buttons there lead to you taking this quiz. So just go to norypouncil.com, and then there you can join our tribe. You'll be able to take the quiz, and then I'll send you access on how you can, submit there's a few questions you have to answer, because we have to make sure that you're not a robot and that you're going to vibe with us. If you don't come with music recommendations, it's not going to work. So bring that energy and just join there. I'm really excited about you, whoever you are. I remember watching Ellie's conversation that was like this, and that led me to him. And he has really transformed a lot about my life. And I don't think I've ever really articulated that to him, because I'm still figuring it out. Like, I'm still seeing it. And maybe I'm that person for you. And if you are, I want you to come and hang out with me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I've just maybe two more questions to bring it home.
Good.
Or maybe like more of a thought that it takes a lot of guts and a lot of self-awareness to be able to be willing to state that I want this business for the enjoyment and the passion that I have. and not make it just about the money. Because like if it's about the money, like yeah, there's ways to do it, and then follow that trail. And no one said it's gonna be fun. No one said it's gonna be enjoyable. No one said you're gonna. But yeah, there's money there. Or choose to do your way and wait a little longer, but then enjoy the process. So it's not. So then right, it's the whole process is enjoyable. The pressure's off, and then yeah, the money always falls. But not in the way you imagined. And it's incredible to see you do that and own it and enjoy it and just it exudes from you. It's such an awesome way.
Thank you, Emmy. Thank you so much.
What advice would you give to anyone else today? It's almost talking to the old Nory from 6 months ago. If someone else was now in that state where you were, now that what you know today, and obviously, it's easy to look back and say, I wish I could do it different, but obviously we can't really. It was always obviously good for you every step of the way. What advice would you give yourself if you had to look back for someone like yourself?
I think the only advice I will give myself is keep going. Because I wouldn't change anything of how things unfolded. It was obviously how it needed to be unfolded. That's what it happened in that way. And I received that and believed that truly. And that's what has guided me to this point. So I think the only reminder I needed perhaps constantly was keep going. Keep going. Forward is a pace. Keep going. Sometimes we associate the outcome with the success, but the outcome doesn't happen without the process. So being able to keep going towards that process, keep going towards, working with yourself, keep nurturing yourself, keep taking action even if you don't get it, keep looking at the early riddles even if you don't fully understand it yet. Like just keep that. Keep on listening to your intuition without knowing you're listening to your intuition, because one moment you will know, and that's gonna change everything. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on. Hang on a second. I'm just gonna